Welcome to Old New Borrowed Blue, the Blue Room podcast about the nicer side of Everton. It's all the things we like. So, just to give you a little update, if you've not listened before, I have a guest on every week, and they pick their favourite old player, favourite former player, favourite current player, new, favourite loan player, borrowed, and just the favourite Evertonian or the favourite thing about Everton, which is blue. This week, I am made up to be joined by a good mate and Blue Room regular Adam Sutton. Adam, how are you? Do you want to just introduce yourself to the listeners in case they've not heard any of the shows you've done?
I'm good, Les. Yeah, I think it'd be a shame if they haven't heard any of the previous shows I've done, but I kind of have
It would
like
be.
a Blue Room hiatus, and then I wait for Matt Jones to text me every so often. But I text you this time because I think there used to be Brew with a Blue that Matt did over lockdown, wasn't there?
Yeah,
And that was one of my favourite Blue Room series. But Old New Borrowed and Blue, I have to say, has been something that, as you've just referred to, then a little bit of nice Everton chat and a little bit of something that makes us all smile and reminisce to a certain extent. So I just thought, listen, I need to get myself involved here. It's not like me not to want to talk about anything that I like about Everton, and we always seem to be talking about stuff we hate about Everton. So yeah, delighted to be on and looking forward to discussing some players that I'm sure both of us will have very fond memories of, and yeah, a couple of other Blues that I'm very fond of myself. So.
good stuff. We'll get into it in a sec. What was just before we start? I'm going to start asking people this every show now. What was your first game? Do you remember?
Yeah, I've had a look at this actually. It was Leighton Orient, 2002. We won 4-1. It's funny because I had a look at it before, and I remember Gascoigne running past about five people and then squaring it to someone. I think it was Kevin Campbell,
Yeah, I think
maybe.
Kevin Campbell scored. Yeah,
But the goal I remember is like an own goal. I'm sure Hibbert like whipped it in, and some Leighton Orient player just like dived and headed it front post. It went in. Um, I think it was the FA Cup or some, maybe the
yeah.
League
It
Cup.
what we missed that game, so we had tickets, and I'm sure the trains were off, or there was some reason we couldn't get there. And I think we got there dead late and just ended up not going.
I think it was. I remember it being cold. It was January.
Yeah, there was
Um,
some reason we couldn't get there.
yeah, that was my first game. I remember my dad taking me. We sat in. It was either the main stand or the top balcony because I was that young. Well, I would have been like nine at the time. I just remember like it was just mad looking down, going like. I
Yeah.
remember I walked up to the top of the stairs. My dad said, "Welcome home, son," and yeah, I'm fuming that that was the beginning because then I'm fucking a Signs for Life of Misery now, and I should have just turned around. Should have just turned around and walked out, but. Yeah, vague memories of it, but obviously great memories of being able to go to your first game and win, which is for the young lads now who are coming through
Yeah,
quite a rarity, isn't it?
unusual. Well, funnily enough, both of my kids, their first game was a win. My dad's first game was a win. Mine was a 4-1 defeat. There we go. Right, we'll get into it now then. So, who is going to be your favourite former player?
So there was a lot of deliberation here, and I've kind of edged me bets almost. And one of me favorite former players is a borrowed player as well. But there's so many, isn't there? Especially around I think 2008, 2009 was when I was at my peak of Evertonian, really. I went to most games home and away. It was in that period of like nearly finishing school, going into like sixth form and stuff. So it was just a bit of like a every weekend. If I wasn't playing footy, then I was at the game with my our fella, and it was great times. Obviously pushing for Europe and in FA Cup finals and stuff like that. But I think in terms of that player that really epitomised that period of being an Evertonian was Tim Cahill, and I know that a lot of lads my age and girls my age who were going to the game at that time. I almost think I've like took him for granted a little bit now. That is a I know people talk about like Everton players, and I've listened to obviously a few of the previous episodes of the podcast, and people have spoken about your Lukaku's and your Kubus and people who are goal scorers and strikers and Everton number nines, which is of course, what we all dream for season by season. But Tim Cahill was just something a little bit different. I think he was a throwback, but also just be absolutely perfect for us now, wouldn't he? In terms of we're talking about Decore playing in like a 10 role and arriving late and helping out the striker. But there's so many times I remember Tim Cahill just being above everyone in the box. Didn't matter if he got a boot to the face, an elbow to the face. It didn't matter if he was trying to head the ball while he was lying down, or he was putting his boot in there where no one else wanted to. Just a proper footballer. Not the prettiest, not the most technically gifted, but could not give a shite really, because it was just some goals that he scored. I remember the first one I remember properly away at Sunderland header late on. Sunderland or Middlesbrough? No, it was Sunderland. 1-1-0. And it was just crap. And he just comes up and him and Ferguson, I think, banged heads, and we don't know who'd scored, but he wheels away. And yeah, when he first punched the flag, which I think was that game actually.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. That actually, yeah.
It was just yeah. From then until obviously he lost his legs a little bit. Some of the goals he scored, I remember a big one to send us to Wembley. I think it was Villa at home. We won 3-1 in the FA Cup. And I remember him. I think he did like a rowing celebration or something. I'm pretty sure there'd been like a, I don't know, natural disaster or something in Australia, and we won 3-1, and Ichibi scored as well. And I just remember looking. We used to sit in the lower Bullens. I just remember looking at the Gladys Street, and it was absolutely bouncing. And as I say, just take those days for granted a little bit now, don't we? Those um, cup games and big games under the lights, and just that team that would run through brick walls for those four stands watching them. And yeah, home and away, he was just a proper warrior.
Yeah, he wasn't even a big fella, was he? So you say like he'd arrive late in the box, and he'd win headers against like players good foot taller than him, more or
Yeah,
less, well, almost a foot taller than him. He was just he did epitome was the epitome of that Moyes sort of side, the work
yeah,
ethic and everything. Wasn't it? I remember I was at his first goal, I think, was City away when
yeah,
he got sent off after
yeah,
scoring.
yeah, yeah.
So we were all there at that game. I think that was one of the first scenes at the Etihad, that. But he scored, and all he did was pull his shirt out. He didn't take it off. He just pulled
No,
it
no.
over
He had some weird like white vest on underneath as well, didn't he?
his head. Yeah. And the ref just gave him a second yellow and sent him off. I
Yeah,
mean, to hang on with 10 men against Man City, couldn't do that now. Like, but
no. But I remember
yeah,
we did. We there was those years of going to the Etihad, and he'd just score every time. I remember he scored. We went, and I think we were the only game on, and I think Bain scored with his right foot early on, and then Kale scored like a really near. I remember Joe Hart just like jumping in the air, and he just got near post and just nodded it down. We went 2-0 up in about 5-10 minutes, and we just go there every year and just beat them. And funny story about like me and my dad would go to. He was a Bobby in Manchester. He used to do crew, but he was Manchester for a period of time. So he used to get loads of tickets for the Etihad. Or it was City of Manchester Stadium, wasn't it,
oh, sort of
beforehand?
was then, yeah.
And we'd just go and sit in like the City end, or he'd get us in like the main stand of City. And as we were walking out, he used to put this like terrible Manc accent on and go like, "That was shite." That as we were walking out, going like, "Just don't say anything," because he wasn't. I'm not Scouse, but he was from like Highton, and he'd put this like funny Manc accent on. But I just remember him doing it every year, so he must have won every year because he would have just not been able to say it if they'd won. And just yeah, that period of time where I remember a goal at home to Arsenal as well, 1-0. I think he must have been horizontal backwards, and the ball's gone almost behind him, and he's got up in the air and he's just headed it back across. I think it was like Almunia in net for Arsenal. It's just unbelievable the way he just generated power. And as you say, he was not a big fella, but blue kangaroo, wasn't he? The way he rose and timing just perfect, really. He wasn't one that was like getting into battles mid-air with people and like powering out the way. It was almost like just catching people by surprise because he
Yeah.
was already up there and they're thinking, oh, I need to jump for this header. And he was just hanging around in the air for a couple of seconds earlier than them. And yeah, just even goals, I remember him scoring one where he's like bundled into the box and then Sunderland at home, we won 7-1 where he's like hit one on the swivel and it's flown in and just yeah, not the
Yeah.
best of players and couldn't really, find a cut through ball or he wouldn't really spin one round the corner into the channels and stuff. But when it comes to just pure goal scoring ability and winning games for us, I don't think there was anyone better at that time.
No, I don't think so. He's over a kick against Chelsea as well.
Yeah,
Famously, absolute belter. The thing
yeah.
about Tim Cahill as well is how we almost never signed him. So he was basically on his way to Palace, wasn't he?
Mm,
He'd pretty much signed. So we had that good season, that breakthrough season with Millwall where they got the FA Cup final.
yeah,
I think they were probably in the playoffs around the same time. They had a good season in the champ. and Palace had all but signed him. And I think Simon Jordan wouldn't pay the agent fee. So then Everton swooped in. But he's one of those players who, if you'd been watching football that season, you looked at him and you thought, he'd be great at Everton. I'd love to sign him. I'd love to get him. And when he nearly went to Palace and then he came to us, it was like, there was a little bit of disbelief that we'd actually got this one over the line when it didn't look like we would. So I think things would have been very different under Moyes without him, wouldn't they?
Again, it's like we speak about Decore now and how he's like so integral to not just him being a big part of the team and the system, but just being able to make other players be able to play in their way, really. And obviously, Calvert-Lewin at the moment definitely struggles without Decore. But we didn't have a striker for like a couple of seasons at some point, and you wouldn't have known because it just pop up with random goals, and you might get 10, 15 a season. But you'd absolutely kill for that now, wouldn't you? Especially the way in which he scored goals, and he never really used to score in like a 4 or 5-0. He'd score in like a 1-0, and he'd be the one. Remember a goal at Zenit where like someone's hit the ball at about 30 mile an hour, and he just bent down in the box and let it hit his head. And we would have won that cup that season, but I think we got knocked out by them, didn't they? And they went on and won it. But in the group game, battered them at Goodison. I think we beat them away as well, did we? Or maybe
we did.
Maybe
beat them twice that season.
Just unbelievable. Big game player, and we're missing them now, aren't we? And what we'd do to have a prime Tim Cahill back, just sticking his nose in places that no one else wants to.
I know, and I think that was sort of epitomised that sort of thing where, again, if the game was 1-0 or 2-1, it wasn't over. It was never over or 0-0. It was like we always had a chance of winning it. Hopefully, we'll get back to that one day. But we'll move on now to your new player, your favourite current player, other end of the pitch. But a great shout, I think.
Yeah, it's for me. He's the first player in a long, long time I've truly thought is going to the top in terms of. I looked at it's Jared Branthwaite for one, but I looked at the likes of John Stones when he was coming through, who's probably his closest comparison in recent years from an Everton centre half point of view. And I knew Stones was better than us and was going on to better things. But I don't know whether I might sound silly saying this, but there's something about Branthwaite that is almost like that Bellingham level of like, this is far too easy for me. The Premier League is just like a breeze, and nobody watched the game last night unless you were in the ground, and I wasn't in the ground last night. But the way that I think it was Danny Mills was commentating on TalkSport. This is how low it got last night, actually, by the way. I had to listen.
I was stuck on a train back from London, so I couldn't.
Oh wow! So it was, I was listening to it, and he was basically waxing lyrical about him, which is quite rare, really, for people who aren't. And I know he's got a link to Everton with his son playing there. But every time I hear people speaking about him now, they're starting to believe the hype, and I've fell out one of those, whether I've got old enough to not be too invested in like Everton players and, oh God, I hope he doesn't leave, and I love him and he's my favourite player, and probably while me old and me borrowed are people that I've got great memories of, but I'm not too fussed about Everton players now. But there's something about Jared Branthwaite that I don't care if he leaves, really, because it's inevitable. But I just know he's going to the top, and it's just the way that everything he does, he seems to have like developed a bit of everyone who's good in that position, really. He's got like the left foot of maybe like, I don't know, your Phil Van Distan, Lescott gone by in terms of just being able to pass the ball, being able to step out and then find someone. But then he's almost like looked at Tarkovsky and gone like, I'm just going to start flying in on people as well. And like past couple of weeks, he's just started like nailing people. And he goes to ground a little bit, but because his legs are about 6'4", and then the rest of his body make him up to be about 8 foot. Big long stride on him when he's playing, but then of course he's able to like win tackles. And he did one the other day when I think it was Watkins was running through or Diaby was running through for Villa, and it doesn't look like he's made a proper tackle, but I guarantee that the lad who was running through on goal could feel him breathing down his neck, and he's just hooked it round and slowed him down and got us back into position. And then he's starting to win like towering headers. He's starting to block things on the line. His positional sense is there. And I mentioned to Matt Jones a couple of months ago about Mykolenko, and he's proved me wrong massively.
Yeah,
I said there was lads in the counties leagues better than Mykolenko, and I'm eating my words now. Like, but Mikalenko would look over to his right-hand side in years gone by and look at Michael Keane, who was more scared of football than Mikalenko was, even though he didn't speak English and his country was at war and it was his first season in the Premier League. And now he's looking to his right-hand side and he's seeing a 21-year-old lad who, as I say, in my opinion, is destined to go and play in the big games for a long time. And I think he's got a real outside chance of going to the Euros as well.
It would be lovely to see that, wouldn't it? To see. I think he's earned it as well.
Yeah, that would make me want to watch England. And I know he might not get the minutes because Southgate's an absolute dinosaur, and it'll be Maguire and probably Stones, even though John Stones I don't think has done too much in the way of kick on this season. I know he had a brilliant one last season, but Harry Maguire and John Stones, or if you're looking further down, if you're taking Tyrone Mings or Mark Gahey or some of these other English centre-halves, as much as I don't like England or don't really care about watching England, if those 2 players or 3 players are going ahead of Branthwaite, then you can count me out. But in terms of modern day footballer with absolutely everything, in terms of a little bit of grit, a little bit of snide about him now, which he's starting to develop, but technique and just ability is just frightening.
I think we could see that he was going to be a very good player from the few times he played before this season. Although, funnily enough, his first sort of touch in an Everton shirt, he basically gave a goal away at Wolves, didn't he?
Yeah. And then the Brentford one as well, wasn't it? He nearly got us relegated.
Yeah, but apart from that, he's sound. But no, I think it's interesting you talk about him like him being next to Tarkowski, and I think he will be learning a lot. I think Tarkowski's been brilliant this season.
It was between them 2, by the way, which shows how you could say much have matured or how bad we are up top, because you'd never catch me picking 2 centre halves in years gone by. But
yeah, but I think he will be learning a lot of the sort of the rougher side of the game from Tarkowski, won't he? And as you said, he is a massive fella, so he's not going to back down. I remember at Palace, he in the cup game, he got pushed in the back. It was just before Calvert-Lewin got sent off, and we thought he was getting pulled back because he was giving the linesman stick, because he got pushed in the back, and he was just like looking at the linesman going like, "Are you kidding?" And like just really openly saying, "What are you doing?" Not getting angry or knocked or anything, but just really just sort of saying, "Come on, that's ridiculous."
He did it. He did it home to Villa, didn't he? On the weekend, where like one of the Mikalenko had hurt his head, hadn't he? And their striker, I think, like had a bit of a flailing arm, and Branthwaite almost said like, "Stop being a divvy."
Yeah.
And it's almost like, as you say, he's learning the tricks of the trade, isn't he? But off Tarkowski, because Tarkowski's great at almost like speaking to the ref and getting in his ear, almost like being the aggravator, but then also going like, "Whoa, he's having a go at me here." Whereas Branthwaite, again, it's like, I don't know, it's when someone who's just another level of human being, just being able to like take control of a situation without necessarily getting themselves worked up or not looking too bothered. It's just like, listen, fella, calm yourself down. And 21 years of age, to be able to have that aura on a pitch is something
that's
special.
what I was going to say. We both know what it's like when you're playing football at 21, and it's safe to say most 21-year-olds playing football are dickheads, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
You get angry about everything. You start kicking people, you mouth off. But he is showing a level of like maturity there, where he keeps a level head. Can get stuck in, can be a bit snide, but it's just his all-round game. As you say, he's got everything, and I'd love him to still be there for another season, at least. But as you say, it's going to be a lot of clubs sniffing around him. Just hope when he goes, it's a really good move. It's not like Man United or something.
But I genuinely believe if Ancelotti's still at Real Madrid in 12, 18 months, I think that he's got his contacts at Everton. He obviously knows about him.
Yeah.
And do you know what's a massive one, Les, as well? Like a left-footed centre-half is
exactly.
more and more again, because we used to love Jagielka and Lescott and Jagielka and Distan, didn't we? Because just balance-wise, it just playing the ball out to your left back, being able to switch it across to your right winger. It's an underrated like tactic almost, isn't it? Because I don't care what anyone says, if you're left-footed or you're right-footed and you're trying to switch the ball with your other foot, tough, and you're gonna miss more than you're gonna hit. But in the Spanish leagues and in these leagues in the Champions League, when you've got wingers or I don't know forwards who are running off you and trying to take you into a channel, and you're able to stand them up with your strong foot.
Yeah,
That's not something that goes amiss really, especially with, as you say, the likes of your big teams. So I'm thinking that level, mate. And people might say, oh, he's only been playing a proper season, but I think your Real Madrids and your Cities and teams like that who are playing in the big games come April, May every year will be looking at him and thinking, yeah, he's here for the next decade or so.
yeah. It would be a well-deserved move. It'd be horrible to see him go, but as you say, he's one of those players who you just look at and you think, yeah, he's not going to be sticking around at this level for too long.
And what interests me as well, just the last one is he had that interview with Coleman, didn't he, after Villa on the weekend? Not to mention how I don't know if Seamus Coleman's 5'3" or Jared Brandthwaite is 6'11", but it was frightening the difference between them. But he's starting to get into that part of it as well, and he's a northern lad, isn't he? He's like the Lakes or Carlisle, is it?
Yeah, I should call that. Did you see the interview we did when he was at PSV?
No.
So he was doing an interview at PSV, and the interviewer was interviewing a Dutch fella interviewing him in English, and he just started slagging Carlisle off.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen.
He come commentary there one time, and it's a terrible place. And he's like, "Well, yeah, it's my hometown, but all right, calm down, mate." Yeah, he looks like quite unflappable in that sense, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And Dave picked Brandthwaite as his favourite current player, so I was looking up on him for that one, and I was amazed. He played 9 games for Carlisle before we signed him. That was it.
Wow.
He played 9 times. That's it.
Was it Marcel Brands?
Yeah, we signed him in 2020.
The one that got away from me.
Ancelotti there as well.
Yeah. People, I tell people about Marcel Brands all the time and say, if he was able to do his job, but like it's funny because it seemed like every season there'd be like Kudus, I think was another one who's at West Ham now, and there's a few others who, Luis Diaz as well.
Yeah, there was loads.
It's just madness,
we would have had some forward line if we'd got all the players we should.
Yeah, he was just like the best. He was great at flirting, wasn't he, Marcel Brands? But when it comes to sealing the deal, whether he was allowed to or not, I don't know. But yeah, little gems like that can go from what 6-7 million or something we paid for him, if that.
Yeah.
£100 million player in the summer, I think.
Yeah, there's no reason why not. We need to hold out for the big money. We'll move on to your borrowed player then. Obviously, a lot to choose from. But who are you going with for your favourite borrowed loan player?
So I don't know if anyone's. I'm pretty sure people have gone for him already, haven't they?
I don't think anyone he's been in the hat, but I don't think anyone's actually said him.
So it's a bit of I don't know if it's a cop out or not, but because I was looking through loan players and you've got like your Mangalas, you've got your Segundo Castillos, you've got big names who've come into the club for short periods of time.
You got Lucina Traore, 100% goal record.
Oh, can I change it?
It's your show, mate.
One goal, one game. But I went for this was a toss up between me old and me borrowed, and yeah, as I mentioned before, I've kind of taken him as me borrowed because for me, he was the funnest Everton player I've watched. And Stephen Pienaar, and I remember it's funny because it was almost like I don't know if it was part of his loan period that he scored a lot of the goals that I was there for, but he obviously he came, stayed, went, and then came back. And there's like goals away at Villa, I think, where he cuts inside, edge of the box, and just whips one. There was one, me and my dad went up to Sunderland. One of the worst games I've ever been to in my life, but he was that small, he crawled through a centre half's legs and toe poked it in and then did a backflip. And it was like the God is great underneath his shirt. And then he just used to do like little back heels and flicks, and everyone talks about Bainar and this left-hand side that, again, back in the day when we were watching it, I say back in the day, but when that was a thing and we were watching it, I just took it for granted so much because combinations from wingers and fullbacks now isn't really a thing because the wingers aren't wingers and the fullbacks are wingers a lot of the time. But there used to be this also almost like a telepathic relationship where sometimes he'd pass it into the path of Leighton Baines, but sometimes he wouldn't even look at each other and he'd do this thing, Pienaar, where he'd go to like roll it with his foot. He wouldn't, so he'd trick a defender. And then Baines knew that he was going to do it at exactly the right point anyway, so
Yeah.
he'd just run onto stuff. And to be honest, Baines, Pienaar, and Cahill are probably my three favourite Everton players because I don't know, there must be 15, 20 goals that them three linked up for where it'd come into Pienaar, Baines would fizz it into Pienaar, first touch, he'd roll it back off to him, and he wouldn't even look up Baines, would he? Just float one
No.
into the box and find Cahill. But the best moment for me, Pienaar, and you know what? I'm still pissed off at James Vaughan because Arsenal away, 5 minutes to go in the snow. My first time at the Emirates, and obviously Lucas Neal scored an own goal. I remember this like it was yesterday. I've still got James Vaughan on a dartboard in my garage. I haven't, but I should do. But basically, he's got the whole half, hasn't he? Pienaar and Cahill slopped him through, and it was in that corner of the Emirates, and it was me, my dad, my two best mates, and their dads as well. Just like a little tiny dink over it. And by the way, if the keeper stands up anymore, he just catches it and he looks like an absolute idiot,
Yeah,
Pienaar.
it was some finish, wasn't it?
But that was him, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
the supreme confidence, little bit of cheekiness, and total trust in his ability. But it was that snowing and bad, like and cold that I thought the ball's going to stop before it goes over the line there because he's just like not even a dink, is it? It's like a scoop.
Oh yeah, it was. It was like a Pat Nevin scoop, and there was the jelly like celebration after it, wasn't it?
Yeah, the drunken man, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
people trying to like celebrate with him, and he was like still falling over. But I don't know if you remember from kickoff, they I think it's Cazorla kicks off and gives it to Nielsen. This is how much this annoyed me, by the way, because I remember the exact pattern afterwards. I think Cazorla gives it to Nielsen and he just collapses. I don't know if he like rolls his ankle or something, or he gets the ball from the
Yeah.
kickoff and falls over. And James Vaughan just picks it up and goes through. I mean, through
I don't
to make
remember
it 3-1. Honestly, Les, to kill the game off away at Arsenal, we haven't won there since, have we? And I don't think we ever will.
No, 96,
Not
wasn't it?
apart from the COVID one where
Oh yeah, the
Charlton
COVID
scores,
one.
yeah. But that doesn't count. And he goes clean through, and then he just kicks it straight at the keeper. And 2 minutes later, they got the other end, and obviously flicks up off Lucas Neal, and they equalise.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like running down the wing, watch his dreadlock swing, Stephen Pienaar, and we were singing that for ages. What felt like ages, and then when they scored, I thought, James Vaughan, I will never ever forgive you because that would have been one of the best aways I've done, and it still was, to be fair, because it was very picturesque. And I think was it a Sunday or a late kickoff on the Saturday? I think.
Yeah.
Just remember it being dark and
It
cold
was an
and
evening
snowing,
kickoff, like a late afternoon one. Yeah.
and that's probably one of the most vivid memories and vivid visions I've got of watching him run through. And I'm thinking, how has he got? Because Kay like pulls it back, doesn't he, with his right foot, and then just spins it in behind with his left.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely no one anywhere near him. And Almunia is thinking, am I going here? Am I staying? And it's one of those moments as an Everton fan where you say that, go on, and everyone has the harmonic go on.
Yeah.
But the go on was really early because he still had half the pitch to try and make up.
Yeah, he was
And he
through,
started to slow,
right high up the pitch,
slow down a little bit. And I'm thinking, is he going to get caught up here? And obviously goes and does that. But again, just a player that at the time we thought was quite normal because the balance that Moyes created in terms of players who worked hard first and foremost and did what was required to win a game in terms of the basics and the non-negotiables, but a little sprinkle of magic. And I think he was the most magic I've seen, really, in terms of something. When the ball came to him, he knew exactly what he was doing, but not many else did. And thankfully, the one who did know was his mate on the left hand side. And yeah, as I said about Cahill, what we do for a player like him now, who's got real magic in his feet, and just imagination's a big thing now in the game that I think is being slowly but surely weaned off players, because it's all about patterns of play. It's all about doing this and doing that and pass and move, which has always been part of the game, but no one shoots from range anymore. No one tries to beat a man with a step over and slip it through his legs or
it's unusual,
do a bit of
isn't
skill. It's different. I think City and Liverpool and teams like that who are obviously just so, I don't know, driven into a certain style of play, this XG lark where it's like, oh, there's no, all the XG is really high nowadays, and XG from someone like Stephen Pienaar who cut inside and shoot, and yeah, 5 out of the 10 might end up in row Z, but a couple that would end up in top bins. Or I remember he scored a goal in the Europa League. Was it AEK or someone where he's just like he's hit it dead flat. He's like with his laces, and it's just gone flying in from about 25 yards. And even the Leon Osman, that goal against Larissa, I think it was Pienaar's little flick
It
inside,
was
wasn't
his
it?
back heel, wasn't it? Yeah.
Just stunning little things like that. That as a young lad growing up watching footy, you remember that and you try and emulate it on the playground afterwards, and then you put a big rip in your base Londons because you weren't able to, and
Base London's.
that's why
What a shame.
yeah, the scoops you could get on them were fine, but any form of back heel or any form of rolling the ball under your foot, you'd be goose. But yeah, the players like that are a dying breed, really, and I hope that comes back around because there's some. I even think
Yeah.
about the likes of like Riyad Mahrez at City, where he'd do something special, but it wasn't like skillful. It was like a chop and then he cut inside. Whereas with Pienaar, he manipulated the ball in a different way. And yeah, if everyone was on his wavelength, and as the likes of Baines and Kale and Fellaini were at the time, and Yakubu as well, it was fun to watch, wasn't it? As
Yeah.
well as efficient and as well as obviously effective.
Yeah. Don't half miss that team. And also, just before we move on to the final one, a rare player that did it in 2 spells at Everton. Doesn't happen
Yeah,
very often, does it, when a player comes back? I didn't realise he actually played almost as many games in his second spell as his first. I didn't realise that.
I didn't
Um,
realise that either. Because I
yeah,
remember it was
70.
that Tottenham game, wasn't it, that he came back and Jelavic scored the winner, but he scored the header, didn't he?
Yeah,
It was a great header, like.
yeah. But it's like that move to Tottenham, it didn't suit anyone, did it?
No.
And I feel like he was kind of sacrificed a little bit for Mikel Arteta. I think Mikel Arteta got the big money, didn't he? And
Mm,
Stephen Pienaar was sidelined a little bit, which we should have done that the other way around. Because quite
mm,
frankly, fuck Mikel Arteta.
yeah.
We'll move on then. A cracking choice, and honestly, I've been reminiscing a lot about that team, like just watching clips and that. They were absolutely magic, and as you say, we took it for granted at the time.
We
But
did.
we'll move on to the final one, the blue category. Your favourite Everton or your favourite thing about Everton?
Yeah. So my old fella, which I've mentioned a few times, um, coming up to a year now, really, until since my dad passed away. But you had the pleasure of meeting him in Mainz. And yeah, I don't want to get upset here. But yeah, the man who introduced me to Everton. Um, unfortunately, but yeah, some of the memories I've got with him in terms of taking me the game, and it's funny actually because last season, when we were obviously struggling, he's one of those, and I don't know what your Al fella's like, Les, but one of those where it'd be, Dad, I think we're in a mess here, and he'd go, No, just need a win, son. And I'm going like, what? Like, we haven't won in about 10 games. He'd go, no, just need 3 points and we'll be fine. And he did it in like the Lampard season as well, and but for me now, as an Evertonian, and I haven't been able to go back to Goodison since really, and probably part of the reason why, not that I fell out of love with Everton, but kind of distanced myself a little bit because such a big part of it was obviously that
Yeah,
going the game with your our fella and sitting in the stands and arguing with him because he'd say that was a wrong decision. I'd say, Dad, you're just being an idiot here. You're being a bitter blue, can't see past anything. Um, but now I can see why our dads probably made it as Evertonians better than us to a certain extent because they can like distance themselves from everything that comes with like being a Premier League team and these
mm.
top teams in the league always getting the rub of the green and stuff. My dad went the game, had a pint with his mates, watched it, 90 minutes. If we scored, he loved it. If we lost, he just went home and went, right, we'll just next one, see if we could win there. And for me, that's what I'm trying to get myself towards really, because we get so wrapped up in everything that comes with, you know, winning a game and being an Evertonian is great, but we talk about these one-off moments that we always love, and Arsenal away with Pienaar and
Yeah,
Tim Cahill away at Sunderland, and FA Cup runs and stuff, and that's where, as a blue, my dad was brilliant because he didn't care about the bigger picture. he just cared about great moments and great games, and the ability just to get to Goodison Park and get to away games and follow his team, which is a big thing now that I think's missing. People turn the back, as I have to a certain extent. When things aren't going great, people are so quick to say, "Oh, giving up with this. Oh, I can't be arsed with that," or this isn't happening, that isn't happening, and actually, it's just about thick and thin, isn't it? Which is,
Yeah,
to be honest, a lot of Evertonians have that ability. And yeah, our dads have seen some of the great teams, so I think actually being able to live through this wasn't too much of a pain. But yeah, it's yeah, the way that he introduced me to Everton was, it's never going to be an easy ride, but this is, I quote unquote, success is for wimps, son.
well, that's it. Did you ever do the guilt thing? My dad does it all the time, where he will periodically apologize to us for it. He'll be like,
Yeah.
when it's been a particularly bad result, he's like, I'm sorry I got you into it, and then you've got the kids into it. It's like, oh, and he gets like really quite apologetic. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you're saying, but I genuinely would not have it any other way at
No,
all.
I remember he said it to me. And obviously I lost my mum a year before my dad, and that period was really
Mm.
weird because obviously Everton were absolutely crap as well. And I used to like drop him off at the train station after, because I'd go like back in the Kale and Pinar days. It'd be like I'd be living at home with mum and dad, so we'd get the training together and go to the pub together, and then go to the games together, and the away days we'd do. But it got to a point where I was that out of touch with Everton because they just weren't bringing me any joy. That I'd just meet him at the game, and then I'd take him home afterwards. And in hindsight, I wish I didn't do that, and I wish I almost continued the tradition of getting the train together and walking up to the
Yeah.
ground together. But I remember dropped him off at the train station after a loss. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Wolves maybe in the Lampard years or year. And he went, "I'm sorry, son." I was like, what are you apologizing for? Well, one, I'm in this, so you can't apologize because that makes me feel like I've done something wrong myself here by being all in on this. And two, as you say, I wouldn't change it for the world. And some of the best days of my life have been going up and down the country, and Lille and Mainz,
Yeah.
what I've just mentioned. And the only people I think, Les, to see Everton lose twice in one day.
It was a
And
select few, wasn't it?
just brilliant. And
Yeah.
afterwards, we went, you, and Mr. Carlisle went for a few pints and got a Mackey's. And
Got a
my our
Matthews, yeah.
fella, the biggest lightweight you'll ever meet, went back to the hotel, fell asleep. But I do have to tell this story because he's not here to tell me off about it. But we went to Lille, and there was 450,000 Evertonians or whatever it was. We're all in the square before the game, and then went to the game, absolutely terrible. And a lad I went to uni with called Etienne, who was from Lille or from Paris or in between, he got us like 4 tickets, 5 tickets. Him and my dad went and sat in the Lille end, and then me and a few of the other boys were in the Everton end. After the game, we all went back to this it was like an Irish bar, and then they ran out of ale. So we went, my dad, being Mr. Know-it-all, said, right, we're going to this like jazz bar up the road. Went up the road and sat there having a pint. And I was like, it's a bit strange in here. They were like they were making music. They were dropping like chains on like drums and stuff. And I went, Dad, this isn't good in here. And there was about 4 or 5 lads going like, Mike, what are you doing bringing us here? And he was like, right, I've got another one up here. Went up to this other bar, and then I'm sat in there, and there was like lads looking at me. There's loads of lads in there, French lads. And I went, Dad, what have you brought us here for? And he was like, oh God, yeah, this isn't where I thought it was. He goes off to bed. We find another Irish bar, bouncing. Get back to the room. Next morning, I wake up. My dad goes, son, I've made a mistake here. If there's a spare key under my pillow, I did something bad last night. Picks up his pillow and there's a spare key. And he went, oh, God. My dad had got that blathered, like, being a lightweight after the Lille game. He's opened the front door of the hotel room thinking it was a toilet. And he's got no pajamas on. And he's gone downstairs and he's gone into the road outside the hotel and had a wee. And then trying to get back up to the room, can't get in. Had to go back down and get a spare key, and
With no kecks on.
nothing on. And he said, "Do not tell your mother." So now anyone who listens to this is able to have that vision of my our fella walking around Lille in the nick.
It's probably best you wear out at this point, isn't it?
Honest to God, it was like, but those trips are, and I know I've gone off a bit of a tangent there, but those trips are the ones that you remember. And yeah, my favourite blue, and at times my least favourite blue, just from pure blind faith, it is obviously my our fella. And hopefully I want to go back to Goodison at one point because, as I say, I've had some amazing memories there, but it won't be the same without him. And I've got him a stone on Everton Way, is it, for the new
so,
the new ground? And yeah, it was a brilliant time to be an Evertonian, and to be honest, maybe he's done himself a favour because I don't think he'd be able to live through all this pain and worry. And if we do go down, then yeah, he might have had a good shout not being able to see it.
He's missed that, yeah. I just want one thing. I remember one of the standout memories from Mainz, apart from the stunning football on display. I was speaking to our fella, and he was talking about you and saying how good you are at football. Because we didn't really know each other that well then, did we?
No. First time we met, I think, properly.
Yeah, I think it was the first time we met properly. And he said, "Oh, you know what? He's a brilliant footballer," and he proper lit up when he was saying it, and you could just see he was just dead proud of like how good a footballer you were, how good a lad you were. That was just lovely, and that's what it's about for me, isn't it? You get there's that like it is that dad and lad thing, very much same story as how I got into Everton as well, and yeah, I can see how it will be tough going back to Goodison, but we'll be there if you're there, mate. If you want to,
100%, yeah, and yeah, I think it's yeah, the ability to spend those years with the person who brings you into football, and that's why I'm not. I always used to say it really about people who are football fans and supporters and stuff, but I don't care who you support. I don't necessarily care what your opinions of football are, but those periods of your life when you're going to watch your team with your loved ones.
Yeah.
People could say it's narrow-minded that football's like a massive part of people's lives, but once that's taken away from you, I guarantee people start to realise how good those times were. And as you say, playing footy at half time down in like the stand at Mainz, and my dad's going like, just get a pint, son, and come and watch them warm up. And I'm thinking, they're terrible, Dad. Why are you even watching, Tom Davis and whoever warming up to play another game and get beat? And me and you and your lads are playing footy downstairs. And yeah, brilliant days and brilliant trips. And as you say, it's such a pleasure to be able to spend it with me, our fella. And who knows, maybe one day I'll be able to take my son and I'll be the one that's saying, no, we just need a win, son, and we'll be fine. Dad, we're 6 points off safety. A win is not going to get us any safer. But he's right. He was right so far. Let's see how it goes this season.
Yeah, that's what it's all about for me. Love that, mate. Lovely stuff. Thanks for that. Loved it. Really enjoyable.
Top man.
Again, 4 brilliant choices. Yeah, thanks, Adam. As I said, if anyone wants to join in with the show, just slide into our DMs on Twitter at the Blue Room AFC. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Adam. We'll catch you on the next episode.